it's got to be weirdly humbling, right? You are at the top of your sport, the most powerful player known to humankind, and then an AI comes in and kicks your butt. But he's being a little dramatic about it by like retiring.
Well, I mean, he beat it once, so that's cool.
Welcome to the Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast. Today we have a special guest joining the panel to discuss lifestyle games. Later in the game show, we'll see who can name the most board games. But first, these are some of the games we've been playing recently.
And I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm Andrew.
So today, David's going to be joining us a little later. He had a previous engagement, so he's not going to be here. I want to take this moment to introduce our special guest, Brad.
Hello there.
Brad's what I would call a real expert on the topic. Before we get there, though, I just wanted to thank Brad for letting us use his music for the show. The intro music, the outro music, and the interstitial transition music, that all comes from Brad's band. Brad, if you want to go ahead and give him a plug, here's your chance.
Our band was called The Evil Beat. We were a 9-piece ska band. Our claim to fame was this was at Kenyon College in Ohio back in the late 90s. We won our Battle of the Bands and we opened for De La Soul at the big party at the end of the year. So yeah, that's it.
Cool.
So if you wonder where the music comes from, that's where it comes from. Let's just go into games we've been playing recently. Just last night, I got a chance to play Lowlands. Either of you guys played that before?
I think you were the one who showed it to me many years ago.
Oh, wow. It's definitely been years since I've played it, so that makes sense.
Yeah, what were your impressions now that you've revisited it?
It was a teaching game. There are 4 of us. I was teaching 2 people, and a 4th person had played before. So it took me a while to kind of like reacquaint myself with all the mechanics to teach it. And I still really like it. Just so everybody knows, this is Lowlands, published in 2018 by designer Claudia Partenheimer and Ralph Partenheimer. So I'm guessing they're a couple, maybe brother and sister. And this came out in 2018. I believe it got the seal of approval from Uwe Rosenberg.
Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah. This game just sort of came and went for a little while. And the only reason like it's on anyone's radar is because Uwe Rosenberg said, "Hey, this thing's pretty good. Take a look at it." And a lot of people did, and I think some people really liked it, and other people just sort of like thought, "Oh yeah, this is fine," and then moved on. So I don't see it played a lot lately, but I still really like it. The theme is basically the players work together and they all live in this lowlands that tends to flood a lot. So it's behooving on everyone to participate in the building of a giant dam to hold the water back and prevent that flooding. So the game, and at the same time, you're also building your own farm of sheep. All the points are scored in either A, how much you participate in the building of the dam, or B, how many sheep you have at the end of the game. And if you get flooded, like if the dam doesn't hold, you ultimately lose sheep, and it affects your score. And I always like that sort of communal participation in a community project, and then the person who contributes the least ultimately gets punished or scores the worst. I'd always like that concept in the game.
Yeah, that kind of mechanic is nice because, like, in a lot of games, depending on who you play with, you play in a very sort of cutthroat manner, like, absolutely don't do anything to help someone else, etc. That type of mentality is very prevalent. So it's nice to have that sort of refreshing change every once in a while.
I think that still happens a little bit, but this game sort of forces you to help each other in a really kind of fun and interesting way. So one of the mechanics is when you contribute to the dam, you contribute X number of resources and you build it. And then as a mechanic, you are forced to ask one of the other players if they would like to contribute. So, and if they say, and it's completely optional, it's up to them. And if they contribute, they can contribute as much as you did or less. They can't contribute more than you did. But if they do contribute, you get an extra bump as if you had contributed an extra resource. So let's say I contributed three, and then I asked Andrew, "Hey, do you want to contribute?" And then Andrew put in 2. I would effectively have moved 4 spaces on the track, and then Andrew would move 2. And so it's this, you're forced to interact with each other and say, hey, do you want to give me a hand building this dam? Which is pretty advantageous in 2 ways. One, whoever you ask basically saves an action. Like they can contribute to the dam without actually using their own worker. It's a worker placement game, so they don't have to use their own worker to take that action, which is pretty big. And then who you ask becomes this fun question of like, do I really want this dam to score well, or do I want the dam to break down? So do I ask the person with a lot of resources, or do I ask the person with like no resources and let the dam break? But it really plays with that cutthroat interaction, and it does it in a way that I haven't seen before, because I can't think of a game where you take an action and then you ask someone else if they want to participate in that action. Just one player to participate with you in that action. Yeah, I can't think of another game that does it like that. Andrew, what have you been playing lately?
Last couple weeks I've been playing Dune Imperium, which is it's a deck builder in the sort of Dune universe world, with a worker placement twist. I forget when it came out, but it's been a pretty big hit. Apparently there's 2 expansions out for it now or something, which is crazy. Time flies, etc. But I think I played it around when it first came out, then had a big break, then recently came back to it last couple weeks, and it is still very fun and solid. Yeah, I think the way the worker placement element interacts, so each card essentially has these symbols that mean that if you play it to deploy a worker, those symbols tell you, sort of restrict which locations your worker can go to. So that makes sort of like trashing cards a bit more interesting than a typical deck builder, because you have to sort of balance which locations. You have to be careful not to accidentally deny or cut yourself off access to certain locations as part of the game, which is a sort of immediate nice little twist.
Brad, have you ever played this game?
I have at least heard of this one. I know it's quite popular. I hadn't even heard of Lowlands. But no, I've not played it. I've not seen it played, so unfortunately I don't have much to add.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So, for those of you who don't know, Dune Imperium came out in 2020, around the same time as
Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Dune Imperium came out around the same time as Lost Ruin of Arnak. And when it came out, they're both very similar. They're both worker placement games with a deck building element. And a lot of people were in love with asking the question, oh, which do you like better? Do you like this worker placement game with a deck building element better than this other one? And the comparison was always between Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak. Personally, I find the question a little weird, because you're either oring. The question is an either or question. Which one do you like better? But really, you can like them both or like neither of them too. Those are 2 other very valid options that are there. And I always thought the question was weird. But anyway,
The thing that strikes out for me for that question is that if you actually play the 2, they feel, at least to me, they feel very, very different. Like, I would consider Dune Imperium to fall more in line with a traditional deck builder, like Dominion, whereas Arnak feels a bit more like its own thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's another reason why I thought the question itself was kind of weird, because yes, they're both worker placement games and both deck building games, but they feel so different. So I don't understand why you need to compare them, or why a comparison of them, or why everyone's so fascinated by this comparison.
It's fun to compare them because, like, on paper, it looks like there's a lot of similarities, but once you play them, the comparison just feels so irrelevant, just falls apart because they're very different.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just want to jump in, actually. So do you guys know Eric Vogel? He's a designer.
Yeah.
So he's a friend of mine, and I just want to give a little credit. I doubt he was the first one to do this combo, but he has a game called Don't Turn Your Back from 2015, which incorporates the deck building worker placement mechanic, where you have your deck and you're placing the cards on the board to take an action and preventing others from taking that exact action. So this combo has been around for a while now.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Nice. I 100% did not know that.
Yeah, he's my friend, but I will say that it's a quite enjoyable game. I like it a lot. So don't turn your back.
Nice plug. Nice plug. Okay, I remember. What was it? I remember playing this game and I really liked it. It's it goes in the category of a game that I really like that I'm really bad at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the sort of the marks of a really great game, which is I can play it, I will have a good time, I will probably lose, but I still enjoy like what I'm trying to do, building a cool deck or like, what figuring out what's the most advantageous move in it or just I enjoy playing it enough that I don't mind losing at it. And there's enough to learn there that I could definitely go back to it and play it many more times. And since we're already there, I don't much care for our Lost Ruins of Arnak. So what are you gonna do?
I like that one. I've only played it a couple
Oh, you
times.
like that one?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I enjoyed it.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
No, they're both solid. I think I enjoy Dune Imperium a bit more than Arnak, but it might have just been I was thrown off from Arnak because it doesn't feel like a sort of traditional deck builder, and that caught me off guard. Right? I heard deck builder. Okay, I had an idea of what it would be like. It was not like that. It was not quite like that.
I have to admit the controls in it, the restrictions in it, are really interesting.
Yeah.
How it controls the way you cycle through the deck really like forces you to really think carefully about what cards you're buying when you put it into the deck, which I thought was very interesting. I was like, oh wow, no other game really does it like this, and you honestly have to like be careful and like craft your deck kind of carefully when you're moving forward. Usually, in any deck builder, you just like, oh, this card's good. You just buy it and you do what it does, and you're hoping to, do it a lot, but you're not really crafting something precise. Whereas I feel like in Arnak, you're definitely trying to craft something fairly precise in what you're doing.
Well, it helps that the deck size is small, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a long time, been over a year. But yeah, the deck size being small definitely helps that to happen. Whereas a game like Dominion, you gotta trash a bunch of cards before you get the small deck.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's very true.
Yeah, and the small deck size in Arnak is kind of necessary given that the game only lasts for like 5 rounds.
That's a good point.
All right, hey Brad, what have you been playing lately?
Well, not a whole lot because life has gotten in the way. But I did. My wife Mulan, she and I hosted a couple friends who are not board gamers, so we played Cartographers. That's been kind of my go-to game for newbies.
Isn't that a roll right game?
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I probably should start with that. This is a game from 2019. The designer's name is Jordi Adon, or maybe Aiden. I don't know. Aiden makes me sound like a Hoosier, for someone from Indiana. So maybe Jordi Adon. I don't know. But anyway, I'm not big on theme. I just like mechanics. But just to give the quick spiel, you and your fellow players are cartographers, and you're trying to map territory by whatever the queen wants. And so that's the extent of the theme I'll talk about. Long story short, there are scoring conditions which can change every game and will change. There's a very small group of cards that will correspond to scoring for each of the rounds, and you can change those up every game, so that makes it have nice replayability. But basically, you're going to be drawing Tetris type pieces on your board, your paper. Everybody has their own paper. Basically, you're drawing Tetris type pieces on your paper. You can, of course, just use pencil. We like to use colored pencils that correspond to the colors of the different landscapes because it just looks prettier. It's more fun, we think. And my favorite thing about this game is, you've got your paper. You're filling it up with stuff. And then you turn a card and it's a monster, and it indicates which direction you have to hand it to. And so then your opponents get to screw with you, drawing monsters in a particular configuration, whatever's on the card, to mess up your board. And then each orthogonally adjacent space next to the monsters is going to be -1 point for you every round, the rest of the game, until you fill it up with any other landscape type. So you've got these competing goals. You've got the scoring that is going to happen that round, and will happen one other round during the game. I won't go into detail on that, but And then the other major thing are these monsters that are coming out, and I like to say, you have to surround them with love, which is just literally anything else. And then they won't score that -1 point against you. But so basically, monsters need to be taken care of pretty quickly, which is thematic. But I like this game a lot. It's very easy for newbies to pick up. I have played it. I mean, I have the app. I played it literally, I don't know about hundreds of times, but well over 100 times if you count the app. It's still fun for me. This may have been another unfortunate case of timing for this game, but it's really great for what it is. It's playing time. It says 30 to 45 minutes. Like always, that's a lie. I'm looking at the Board Game Geek description. Games always take longer than this. You know, if you had 4 experienced players, you could crank it out in 45 minutes, I think. But in my opinion, this as a teaching game with newbies, this will take well over an hour.
I think that's what they do with it. Like they always make those time assessments based on experienced players. Yeah.
Yeah, well, even I mean 30. I mean, 2 people who are experienced could play this in 30 minutes. That's fair, but I don't know. I'm also I'm considered to be the AP analysis paralysis player. I'm typically the slowest player for a lot of games, so maybe that's just my own personal bias. But I think we can all agree that those estimated playing times are usually on the quick side, even compared to experienced players. I'm seeing here on Board Game Geek the weight is 1.89 out of 5, which is really hard to find something under 2. I guess that's fair, but I don't want people to think that because that number is so low that it's a waste of time, even for experienced players, because it's not. It's not a waste of time. It is. This game is great. It's certainly not a brain burner, but there are always interesting decisions.
Yeah, I feel like that Board Game Geek rating is really about ease of entry, like how easy is the game to learn. But then some people take it as how complex is the game as a whole, which, those two are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a fairly big overlap on the Venn diagram, I would say, on those two things.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, and I'm looking at some of the images on Board Game Geek of the stuff people have drawn. Holy cow. I was talking about, just using colored pencils. Apparently this is very typical for players.
Oh, for sure.
Some of the images on here are just gorgeous. Like, wow. People really spend a lot of time drawing their pictures. Like, when you first start playing it, it's just pencil and, that's all you got. And then, wow, yeah, check out. Yeah, it's fun to see some of the stuff that people have drawn. That's way more detailed than even Mulan does. And she used to be in her past, or at least she was trained to be a scientific illustrator. So anyway, you can make your images. You can draw your stuff as detailed and pretty as you want to. That can be a part of the game in and of itself.
Yeah, I remember this game too. I played it once, but I played it online, so I used the tabletop simulator version of it. And I remember being very impressed by this game. I was like, because roll and writes are okay, but I find a lot of them to be very similar. And this one was doing something really different and like really enjoyable. Like it was a fun puzzle to figure out. And then when you let your opponents kind of throw a monkey wrench into your program, I mean, that simultaneously feels really rough, but like really fun too. So, yeah, I was thoroughly impressed by this game. I haven't gotten a chance to play it in a while, but I remember this one blowing up pretty big to the point where they came out with like new versions of the game, eliminating the writing part of the game and just making pieces for it. So they would have like your Tetromino pieces, and they would just have them, and you could just put them into a live version, and you wouldn't have to draw anything. You would just get the pieces and put them onto your board or something.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah, and I was like, oh wow, this game must be pretty popular for them to make a version that does this. So I don't know if there was like someone made it themselves or was it actually a production copy, but I was like, oh, clearly this game is super popular, and yeah, I think that's deserved.
I hadn't even heard of any such thing. That sounds very interesting, and I will have to look for it. So there's a Heroes expansion. I like the thematic nature, in particular, of this expansion. There are different monsters. My favorite monster is the zombie. So the zombie, if someone attacks you, the zombie is just an individual square. But if you don't address the 4 orthogonal parts to that square, then it will expand just like zombies do. So if you don't address it quickly enough, you're gonna have a nightmare on your hands
Oh,
with all the
interesting.
zombies taking over your board. And the other monsters have thematic aspects as well, which is pretty cool. Like the dragons, like if you the moment you surround all the dragon spaces, then you get 8 coins. You know, which is another part of the game, which is very thematic, very cool. The other thing is roll and writes are just okay, Paul. What the heck? It's my favorite mechanic that has come into.
Recent popularity.
Yeah, exactly. If you have you played, goodness, my brain is melting. There are 2 roll and writes that everyone needs to check out. One is Hadrian's Wall. It is not recommended for new new gamers. So this is a brain burner. A lot going on. I don't want to delve too deeply into it, but probably my favorite roll and write. And the other one, I'm I'm blanking.
Yeah, I remember Hadrian's Wall. I liked it. It was definitely very involved, very complicated. I just meant mostly like Gonshan Clever, Welcome to, and a lot of those games when they first came out just felt very similar to me. Like it's clearly like it's you roll this, you pick what you want, you pick the action or you pick the random action that hopefully chains into other random actions and creates a really big turn, and you hope that it gets big enough or I remember that. And I thought they were pretty novel, but a lot of them seemed to just play very similarly. So I didn't get super into them.
I think that that's fair. A lot of the first ones I played were fun and kind of like Welcome to is great because you can actually play that with as long as everyone can see it. Like if you projected up the various stuff, everybody like a ton of people could play it like as a party game, like a whole bunch. But I think the mechanic has evolved a lot just in a few years with Hadrian's Wall, and then the other game that I really want to trumpet its awesomeness is Fleet the Dice game. Mulan and I played the heck out of this game. We loved it. Obviously, it's got dice, so it's truly a roll and write. Tons of replayability, lots of interesting decisions when you roll those dice and you decide, okay, what am I going to take, and then what's that going to allow other people to take, and then yeah, just great fun. Check out Fleet the Dice game.
Yeah, I remember the original Fleet. I don't think I've played the dice game.
I have not played the original Fleet, so
Funny.
I would say Fleet the Dice game is the perfect game. Newbies can learn it, and experienced players will love it as well.
All right, today's discussion topic is lifestyle games. I specifically wanted to cover this one because, well, quite frankly, I hadn't heard any other podcasts really talk about it or really go into it. So here's hoping we're the first. Otherwise, it's just going to be some retreads of everybody else's stuff. So let's start with a definition of what a lifestyle game is. From the research into the definition, a lifestyle game is any game that takes on the form as the hobby itself. A good example lies in tabletop gaming. A person whose primary hobby is board games is not playing a lifestyle game, but a chess player is. A chess player pretty much dedicates him or herself to just playing chess, and it becomes the entirety of their hobby or extremely large percentage of their recreational time is dedicated towards one game solely. Okay, so that's our definition.
Okay.
Yeah, right off the bat. The 2 biggest ones are probably going to be chess and Go. There's a big enough range in skill level and enough to learn from each game that you could dedicate a lifetime to studying it and really not necessarily learn it all.
It's true. And especially for those 2 games you mentioned, like with the more recent advances in technology as well, that's also sort of making big changes in how players learn and study and think about the game too, which means, once again, there's another big gulf to learn for those professional players to cross. So I have to wonder, based on this definition, how do like sports fit in? Because obviously, like it's easy to forget that sports are ultimately games, right? And obviously, professional players can not only make a living, but I guess it's different because right, that's their job. It's not necessarily their like recreational time.
So yeah, there's some good big overlap here. So like people can learn chess, dedicate their lives to playing chess, or dedicate their lives to playing Go, and use that as a way to make a living. The two most notable would be like you go on the tournament circuit and you play in a bunch of tournaments and you place well and win a lot of money. The other would be you you can also be a like Go instructor, offer classes, and as long as you have a big enough student base, you could probably also make a living just teaching the game as well. So it's arguable, like, sports is actually, that's a pretty fair one. You could call that a lifestyle game as well. You could do it as a profession, and then you can also theoretically turn around and coach. And there's even more kind of lucrative professional opportunities there because you can also be a commentator. You can also be a writer, someone who writes articles and news articles about
Yeah.
athletes or the sport itself or whatever else innovations are coming out.
Yeah, definitely a lot of parallels. But then, like, for some people, just if we go back to your original definition of it as something more recreational, like, there's a lot of almost any game can fulfill that requirement too at that point.
So I think the key trait a game needs to have is to have more than 10,000 hours worth of content to study and enjoy. I'm basing 10,000 hours on Malcolm Gladwell. He's the one who indicated you needed more than 10,000 hours of practice to master a skill. So if the game has that much content for you to honestly like go through and enjoy, then you can make that a lifestyle game.
This one's pretty good. For Go, so very similar to chess. These are the two most long-running games ever. They're the oldest games that are still played today in pretty much the same form. And there are worldwide tournaments through most countries, most first world countries. So there are a lot of world tournaments for Go and chess, and you could definitely make a very healthy living just playing one of those two games. The prize pool in chess is around 2.1 million annually. So if you're the guy at the most powerful chess player ever, you could theoretically enter and win every tournament and net your well, I don't know about net, but you can make up $2.1 million potentially. Not that one guy generally wins all the tournaments.
I want to know is it just like a buy-in, like in poker? Like, where's that 2.1 million coming from?
Tournament winnings are usually around like $100,000 to $300,000 for like the top prize. So if you're hitting all the top prizes of all the tournaments, like the biggest U.S. one, the biggest Russian one, the biggest Germany, et cetera, and it adds up, and you can make around $2.1 million apparently. The one for Go is bigger. There are tournaments in China, Japan, and South Korea, and I think Japan has the most tournaments, and they are very lucrative. Like, if you could be the guy who wins all of those, I believe it's more than 2.1 million. I couldn't get an exact number because there's a lot of like currency conversions I needed to go through, and I was like, oh, that's just too many.
I did not know that. I mean, it made sense. I just that it'd be a bit big because again, these people have to basically invest their whole lives into learning and studying and playing.
So one big thing in this this tournament scene especially is now that artificial intelligence has been introduced, and both in the realm of Go and chess, the best player theoretically can be non-human, can be an AI, and apparently it just can't be beat.
It is very good, and especially for Go, it was such a huge deal because Go is a lot more complicated than chess.
Yeah, it's very different. The concepts in it are more abstract concepts, and like influence as a concept is much trickier than if my piece, hits your piece, it takes it, and that's it. So yeah, it was a big upset when
Yeah.
an AI could play Go and outplay the strongest human player. There's an article about that specifically, which I thought was hysterical. There's this guy from Korea, Lee Se-dol. He was considered the best human player ever. And he was pretty young. He was only like 26 when the AI came out. And they played a match, like I think a series of 7 matches, and he won one game, and then the AI won all the others. And he's the only human player to ever beat this AI. And that's it.
Wow. And that was also an early version too, because with AI you can keep learning.
And then after that match, he declared that he's retiring from the game of Go because it cannot be defeated.
Wow.
It's got to be weirdly humbling, right? You are at the top of your sport, the most powerful player known to humankind, and then an AI comes in and kicks your butt. But he's being a little dramatic about it by like retiring.
Well, I mean, he beat it once, so that's cool. This is I believe it's been a few years since I've seen this, but this was actually covered in the movie AlphaGo. It's on Netflix, or at least it was at one point. And I remember enjoying this movie thoroughly. So if anybody's interested in Lee Sedol's story, check out AlphaGo on Netflix.
Yeah. I was like, wow, this guy's taking it kind of hard. So let's move on a little bit to poker. Poker has a larger prize pool in cash prizes than Go or chess combined.
Significantly more. In fact, a single tournament, the biggest tournament, the World Series of Poker main event, $10,000 buy-in, the prize pool for this single tournament alone in 2022
Wow.
was $80.8 million.
What was the first prize, top prize?
Let's see here. Something like $10 million.
$10 million. Oh, okay. So the record's still set at 12.5 million?
Don't know the answer to that. If you have that information, then yes, 12.5 million. But I can tell you the price pool peaked at 2006, which was kind of after there's a player literally named Chris Moneymaker who won. He was like Joe Schmo. Like back in the day, if you go back to the history, back in the day of like the 70s and 80s, this poker was nothing. Nobody watched this stuff. Like dozens of players, maybe I don't know, a couple hundred would be in the World Series, and somebody would win, and okay, yay. And then 2001 happened. Chris Moneymaker, Joe Schmo, not a professional poker player, wins the World Series of Poker, and poker just goes through the roof. Specifically, no limit Texas Hold'em. And 2006, prize pool peaked at 82.5, and then the winner won 12.5 million. And then momentum was lost, but it is still very popular. And just from 2018 to 2022 alone, the prize pool has gone from 74 million to 80 million, and obviously first prize has increased from there as well. So poker is still very much thriving in the United States and in the rest of the world.
Okay. So, David, you're here?
Hey.
If you had to sort of gauge how many hours of poker do you need to play to really make a living at poker?
Oh boy. My goodness. I mean,
Any guesses?
Like from my understanding, a lot of it. So in addition to like the math and the gambling and the risk reward stuff, right? It's also like trying to pick up on people's habits and whatnot. The first half, the math part, that already takes a good number of hours. And then you need to play some to like actually internalize it and learn it and get a feel, and then factor in the learning the other people part. You really can spend a lot, right? And I think a lot of poker players probably do.
Yeah.
Maybe once you make it big and you have enough money, then you can set it aside. But like to get there, that can be a pretty long ride.
I'm finding it a hard question to answer. I don't even know if this is true. I was just trying to do a little research to see if this number is true, but supposedly only 6% of poker players are profitable. I don't know if that's true. I would need to validate that percentage. Well, so first of all, if everyone buys in for say $50 into a tournament, the house is going to take a cut of that, right? So even if everyone is of equal skill, your expected value is not gonna be to break even because the house is taking a cut. And in the same way, that's true with cash games, where you're not trying to win a tournament, last person standing. Cash games is just it goes around and around and around, and every hand, depending on where you're at in Vegas or elsewhere, that they take what's called the rake, which is 10% of the pot up to a certain amount. I was stunned to find out. I just played for the first time in a long time at a casino. They're taking $5 out now. So that's a big cut. If you're losing $5 out of every hand that you play over time, you can imagine that that adds up to real money. So you're not just playing against players, you're playing against the rake. So that makes it hard to make money long term. To get back to the question at hand, how long or how many hours does it take, to I don't remember the exact wording, to get good or to be decent.
Let me retool the question a little bit. Could you play poker as a 9 to 5 job? Like, could you dedicate 40 hours a week, a regular work week, to playing poker and make a living at it? I was really wondering, like, how many hours would it take to play it comfortably? But why don't we use the 40 hours a week as a baseline? So if you're doing really well, you can afford to play less than that. But if you're not doing well, then you ultimately have to play more than that to really make a living at it. My question is, like, how many hours a week do you think you have to play to make a living at it?
Yeah, it really depends on your bankroll and your bankroll management. So first, you've got to get a bankroll. You've got to have a baseline of money that you have access to for poker playing. If you just have $100 and you're looking to make a living from poker, you're not going to make it very far. So I don't know what that number should be. Imagine somewhere in the 5 figures. I could see having a bankroll of $50,000. You would have enough wiggle room to, if you have a bad stint and you're running cold, you could lose half of that and you would still be able to play at particular stakes for a while. For example, if you were playing 510, and that's typically $1,000 buy-in. 510 meaning the size of the blinds, not to get too deep into the weeds, but that's literally what they would call it, 510. So if you were buying in for $1,000, you could make some decent money. Like if you're just in a hand with one other person and all your money goes in, then you could a $2,000 pot, so you're winning $1,000 if you win the hand, of course. $1,000 is not too shabby, even even for a week's worth. You could live on in most places anyway, $1,000 a week of income. So fundamental to your question is, what's your bankroll? So you got to have a cushion to start, and you have to be playing high enough stakes to actually win enough money to make it worthwhile as a job.
The short answer is yes, you can make a living off of 40 hours a week. But it really depends on how rich you are and how good you are.
That's fair. Because, yeah, I've definitely met a few people who were like, oh, I'm totally going to, play poker for a living. And I'm like, are you? Are you really?
Honestly, it's a lot more feasible to make a living playing poker online than in person. Online, you get through hands much faster. You can play multiple tables at the same time. I've seen people play like 30 tables at the same time, like online. And that's a low end. Some people can do more than that. But they have like a system. They go really fast.
I played as many as 20 at once, and that's with only one monitor. But that was a lot of limit hold'em, where really there's not a lot to even observe. It's really just like most of the time you're folding, or it's in the background, so that makes it easier. I used to play 10 no limit tables at once, which is probably a bit much. I ended up settling on 4 so I could actually watch all 4 games, because in no limit hold'em, it's a lot more important to kind of pay attention to what's going on. I want to disagree with something that Dave said about it's more feasible online. That's not the case at all. Online game is a lot harder. It used to be amazing back in the aughts, before the Justice Department or whoever it was kind of came down on the biggies like Full Tilt and Poker Stars, and so now people Americans can't play on those sites anymore. So online used to be a super soft game where it was actually quite easy to make some decent money. It's not the case anymore. To make money, unless you're just like one in a million, like in the top tiers of poker skill.
To elaborate on your disagreement, though, which I do agree with, but you're coming at it more from a U.S. centric point of view because online gambling is still legal in several other countries.
That's true, Dave. But it was the soft Americans. Seriously, like this is just like the way it is. It was the fishy Americans who made the game online awesome for everyone, and they're gone, and it sucks now. Like I will say, it made me become a much better poker player. I couldn't just do my thing and just sit like a rock and never bluff. Essentially, I was just there. I used to do what was called bonus whoring. There was literally a website called bonuswhores.com, whatever it was, the website, and it would just list all the deals where you could deposit somewhere and just hang out, basically wait for monster hands, and then just crank through a bunch of hands, and you guaranteed make money because you were making money just by depositing and playing X number of hands. It was kind of awesome. Getting back to American players, once Americans stopped playing en masse in 2010, it got a lot harder, and what I was doing wasn't working anymore. And so I had to actually, do what poker players do, which is just mix it up a lot more, bluff more. Like I didn't used to bluff at all, like back in the day, like when I was really playing a lot in the aughts. So long story short, online game much harder. If you're gonna do this as a way of life, you have to play in person. Unless you are just a phenomenal player. I actually considered strongly, in fact, doing this, and I'm very glad that it didn't end up going that way, because I don't think it would have been the best decision for me health wise in multiple ways. I was very strongly considering moving to Reno to try to make a go out of playing poker professionally. So I've played. There's a card club in Emeryville called the Oaks that I've played at a lot over the years, and I've been going to Reno a lot to play. And it's not like I haven't made a ton of money, but I am definitely a profitable player. But again, just because you're profitable doesn't mean you can exist on it as a career or as a job. At no point did I ever make enough money to really subsist on poker winnings. My best year was something like I profited $20,000, and that was 1 year, and that's pretty solidly like my best year by a good amount. So, and I was eat, sleep, drinking, whatever they're saying is poker, like pretty hardcore, playing tons of poker, especially online at that point, back when the game was easier.
Well, that really lends credence to a lifestyle game. Like you have to dedicate your life to playing it. It's at that point become way more than just a hobby. It's a profession at that point. So
yeah, I mean, I've done this enough, long, 10-hour, 12-hour or more stints playing poker that I would really strongly encourage people who are interested in doing it to think heavily about whether it's something they really want to do. A friend once told me, and I this will never leave me. He said, this is what I would, and someone who was better than me, who'd done it, who'd played probably as much as me, he said, yeah, I was making money in Vegas, and he just he made the analogy of, well, you could walk around, imagine you're just walking around the desert, just picking up dollars. That's how exciting it would be if you were doing this, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. You're just, you can make money. You can do this, but at some point, it's just going to become a grind and not fun. Even if you aren't having bad spells. I mean, everyone's going to have bad spells, right? It's just math. Like you're gonna, right? His point being that even if you're making money, it's going to be a grind and not fun at some point. Like, so you have to have just a particular temperament, and you have to have other interests too, if you're going to make a go of it for poker. I suppose you could say this for anything, just to expand it back to the topic. Yeah, of lifestyle gaming. Like, man, do you really have to want it? Just being good enough to make money isn't even enough, right? You have to have the disposition to be able to, do it, and then, put it out of your mind and do other things and be productive in other ways. It's not just because you're good, it's not enough.
All right, did you get that, boys and girls at home? Stay in school, study hard, work hard, get a real job.
Mm, sure.
Before we move on from poker, I'm going to go ahead and ask one last thing, and that is, of course, the addition of AI to poker. So everybody who's into poker probably already knows this. Now that AIs are so popular in every game, of course, it also has a hand in poker. Apparently, they have an AI that plays heads-up poker pretty optimally. And a lot of poker players, from what I've seen, seem to feel like this has quote unquote removed the soul of poker. So, what that really means is a poker AI has basically figured out what the optimum play is in regards to how often and what percentages you should be bluffing, calling, betting, whatever it is. Just every move in poker. And the players that generally do the best are the players who emulate the AI. So, like any given hand, you could probably look up a chart for what you should be doing, and the chart will basically tell you 30% of the time you should be bluffing with this hand, 20% of the time you should be calling with this hand, 40% of the time you should be raising with this hand, and then the players that sort of most similarly mimic the AI's behavior ultimately do the best. And this has sort of removed some of the romance of the game because it's so mathematical and so clinical. And, the old days of, reading tells and being a feel player has taken a weird backseat, or at least fallen by the wayside to some extent. And the people who are super into it kind of just emulate the machine, get the best results, get the best expected value. Do you guys have any feelings? Do you agree with that assessment or disagree with that assessment, or what do you think? What do you guys think?
I'd say it's pretty accurate. At the same time, I also want to say that you could go to any casino and sit down and you're playing with people who have no idea about solvers. Your average, lower stakes game, 1-2 or 2-5, you're not going to sit down with anybody who knows anything about solvers at all. So it's not like, I wouldn't say that solvers ruin the game, but any poker pro who's making 6 figures or 7 figures knows exactly what's going on in terms of how much solvers have influenced the game.
Because you don't know, a solver is a statistical analysis program that analyzes play based on percentages and then gives you the breakdown of how often you should be doing a given thing. Is that right?
Yeah, and kind of the poker player who talks about solvers intelligently and with a lot of knowledge is Doug Polk. He is the best by far, heads up, meaning just one-on-one, no limit poker player, no limit hold'em poker player in the world. And so if anybody is interested in kind of learning more about heads up and solvers and that sort of thing, look up Doug Polk's YouTube videos, because he's a very interesting guy. I can't follow half of what he's talking about sometimes. Well, he does a nice combo of getting deep in the weeds, but he also makes the stuff pretty accessible as well. But anyway, what you said, Paul, is pretty accurate. Solvers are a thing. I think I read a story once where somebody had a big decision in a tournament, and they didn't know what to do because their recollection or their knowledge was suggesting that the solver would say that they were 50-50 on either folding or going all in. And he literally flipped a coin, I think under the table, or just he flipped a coin to help him just make the final decision because it was literally a coin flip. The solver would say it was a coin flip. So these sophisticated players who know about solvers literally trying to, in some cases, even recall what the solver would say to do in a particular situation. So taking away the soul of it is kind of accurate at a certain level, but not at the kind of base level of Joe Schmoes, sitting down at a casino just to play poker.
I mean, I don't think it removes the soul at all, honestly. I think it's just a prominent mathematical method you can use, but you can still bluff, you can still call someone out, you can still get the feel and tells, or just kind of get the feeling to know when to go in, even if the solver doesn't recommend it. Yeah, I think overall it just helps, like the overall people just be more solid overall. So it's a lot harder to just BS your way, like through a tournament. In a weird way, it's not quite a new thing. It's new that it's so prominent and so accurate, but there was an old method I knew of when you weren't sure what to do. Like in a situation, you're like 30% of the time I should raise, 70% of the time I should call or fold. Let's just say 30% raise and 70% fold, just to make it easier. A nice percentage random number generator you could use easily was just your wristwatch. So you just look at your wristwatch and see where the second hand is, and if it's in the 30%, then you raise, and if it's not, then you fold. And it was such a fun method, or interesting method, because even if your opponent knew exactly what you were doing, they still couldn't get like a solid read on you from it. They just knew you did a percentage, and you acted accordingly to what that percentage was, but they don't know which way or what the percentages are. So in that regard, I think when that guy flipped the coin, he probably just did it above the table, and just the opponents would look at him and be like, I don't know what the hell that was.
His decision was fold or all in. I mean, those are the two extremes of decisions, right? There's not like there's a lot to predict after that.
Yeah, but imagine someone flipping a coin. You know it's fold or all in. They flip the coin, they look, and then they go all in. You're like, well, does that mean that he's bluffing me percentage-wise, or does that mean he's better than me, and he's 50% of the time I'm going to call? I don't know what to do.
I would agree with Dave that the game is still the game. It's still you against the other players, and my enjoyment for the game hasn't diminished because solvers are a thing now. And I want to agree with something else Dave said, which is that it's not like this is entirely new. The bots are better, but bots have been around since the early aughts, or I don't even know when they started, but they've been around for a long time. They're just very good now. In other words, I think it was 2015 or so, where the first computer or bot literally solved Limit Hold'em, which is a much kind of easier game, a much easier algorithm to come up with. And then now we're at the point where no limit is, quote unquote solved. But the game is still the game. If you go to a casino, it's not like you're literally playing against a bunch of computers. You're still playing against people who are drunk and who make errors, and you can observe tells. The game's still the game. It's just now there's these accurate tools that people have accessible to them, but it's really only for Joe Schmoes, it's really only gonna affect online games. They should be aware that this is a thing that exists. But other than that, it's really the top pros that are influenced by solvers and bots. It's not something that your average player is really going to have to concern themselves too much with.
Oh, machines ruin everything. That's it. It's true. We knew it from the beginning of time. Automation replaces human decision making, and it's ruined everything.
Well, I mean, on another side note, I just think the soul of poker argument is just BS. I think it's just something people say when they can't explain things. They just feel like, oh, or they just aren't having fun with the game, even though the game is all mathematical, and nothing about that changed. Maybe it's the way some of the people play it is different, but like the soul of the game, or whatever the hell you're making up to quantify your fun with the game, it's not a thing.
Obviously, soul of the game is a dramatic way of saying, like, how fun and romantic the game is. Okay, it's clearly a metaphor for something else, but like, it's not to be taken literally in some degree.
I feel like the soul of the game is how much money you win. If you're winning money, then the soul is there. But if it's too hard to win money, then the soul is just gone.
Yeah, I'm still a fan of the home game. All right, let's move on. So, to bring it back to something more related to the board gaming hobby, how about Magic the Gathering? So clearly has a very large tournament scene. It has a very large following as far as tournament coverage. I believe a lot of it's covered on Twitch. Definitely a pro scene / pro culture. And it also has a really in-depth, complete lifestyle that goes with the game. The people who are into Magic the Gathering are really into Magic the Gathering.
Well, that's because they don't have money for anything else.
And Magic keeps taking their money.
It's a big enough money sink that it just sort of consumes all your disposable income as well.
Magic's weird because there's a lot of elements to it, right? Like for some people, they just like the collection aspect of it, right? They don't even necessarily play it; they just like to collect stuff. But for the people who do play it, again, there's a lot of levels you can go. There's both like the sort of official sanctioned formats or like the ways of playing Magic that are part of the professional scene. But then there are people who go, as you say, they really enjoy Magic, but they enjoy different parts of it or different ways to play. It's definitely weird. Magic is a weird little ecosystem.
The ecosystem is actually very important, especially for myself. I don't even play Magic, or I don't play it anymore. I'll occasionally enter a draft tournament, perhaps, but sponsored, which means that someone pays for my entry, but I give them all my cards, and I have to draft rares if I see them. That's a whole side topic.
So they front you your buy-in money, your stake for the tournament fee, whatever it is.
Yeah,
You draft and play, and you must draft rares.
if I see them, yeah.
You do as well as you do in the tournament, and whatever cards you win go back to the guy who fronted your buy-in.
Yeah, and also usually if you do well, you get a prize, and I'll give that to the guy as well. But also all the cards you draft, you get to keep at the end. Like whatever deck you made, you get to keep all the cards. That's why I have to draft the rares. And so yeah. So it's a way for me to play and not have to. Because if I played normally, then I just have all these Magic cards left over that I don't want. I could just give them away, but it's way better if someone pays me for them. I'm having so me personally, I have a hard time saying anything negative about Magic, even though I have a lot to say that negative about it. Because, in a nutshell, at least in America, Magic is credited for saving or keeping the board gaming hobby alive.
It's true.
Or more specifically, most board game stores are around because of Magic.
Yeah, it's like I hear it's like a third to half of the product is due to Magic. Potentially more, depending on what stores even.
Sure. I mean, there are some places that would have been okay, you know, that like the community is good for that. And I'm just talking about in general, but yeah, a lot of the stores, any like mom and pop especially, board game selling stores, also sell Magic because it keeps them alive. Like it's that important.
David happens to work at a board gaming cafe. If you had to take a guess, what percentage of revenue do you think is dedicated to Magic? Product only.
Oh, it's tough to say because I don't actually know the margins. I hear they're actually not great, the amount the store gets for each card sold. So I guess like 20-25%. That does include some of this, but it's really hard to guess that. It might be higher if you include tournament fees and other stuff. I guess I do have to include that. So it probably goes up to like at least 30%. Well, it also, you know, it gets people in the store. It gets people interested in coming other days as well. Yeah, and it makes the store look like busier when it's just Magic players.
But then if it's doing what it used to do of like you get a free drink, then there's some minuses there.
Right. Like I can see the report at the end on what was sold, and it also fluctuates a lot. There's some days where tons of Magic is sold, especially on pre-release days. There are bigger tournaments. There's weeklies, and then there's like like monthlies and set releases and stuff like that. And so it fluctuates a lot, so it makes it even harder to judge. But I can kind of see the thing, and I don't know how much profit. I can see the sales, but I don't know how much profit that is because I don't actually know the cost of wholesale Magic cards.
Oh, well, it's fine. It's not about profit. I just asked about revenue. How much of the revenue does it generate?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just gonna go about like 25%. Even though like there's a lot of other stuff to the cafe, the Magic is still a really big part of it, and it's very prominent. When you enter, you can see all the Magic cards right behind the register. There's just a big old shelf of cards. And we have the events. There's Magic on 5 of the 7 days now.
5 of 7?
Yeah, 5 of 7.
Whoa, jeez. 5 of the 7 days.
It's a little harder to compare because like if it's a cafe, there's like the food and drink aspect to it too, whereas like most other stores won't have that.
Yeah.
Or it'll be just like small, very small snacky stuff.
Since we didn't cover it, the main way this happens, in case you're not familiar with Magic, is that the game is sets of cards, and each set has its own number of cards, just a whole bunch. And you take these cards, you build the deck, you know, and you compete. But in the standard format, which is the main format, only the last 4 sets are applicable. Only the last 4 sets are eligible to be used. So every year or so, they introduce a new set. So that means the set that was introduced about a year ago is now gone and cannot be used for standard anymore. And so in this way, the cards keep cycling, and the game keeps staying fresh in terms of like the meta or what decks are popular or good.
I mean, again, not surprising because again, a lot of different ways to play. It is a big, thriving community, generally speaking, if you can find it.
Right. If you're collecting, you have to collect a whole new set every quarter year, and if you're a player, you have to, upscale your cards every quarter year or so. Upscale may not have been the right word, but whatever.
I mean, sounds like the community's been established, which is why I can support that.
But I'm sure, like, Magic players right now are laughing because that's not the case anymore. I just use that as a general example of how it used to be. Nowadays, they're doing like a new set every month or month and a half.
Really? The release schedule is up to every month?
More or less, yeah. Not every month, but pretty close. Yeah, it's really ridiculous, and a lot of the community is complaining about it because it's just too much. It's too much to collect. It's too much. It's too much to keep up with. It's just too much. It's just basically a big money grab to just keep going faster.
And thus also requiring people to consistently invest and buy a new card.
It's really bad. They've kind of messed with it a little too much, and they started pushing out a little too much, and the community started to get pissed.
They could just stop playing, right? They could just stop playing. They could make that choice.
Yeah, they could just stop playing. It's true.
Well, that's what's going to happen if they're not careful. I have a question. I know next to nothing about Magic, but how, and I'm sure it varies a lot, but how much money on average-ish, just throw out a number, would somebody spend on one of these releases?
Ooh, that's a good question. It really depends. If you're a collector, you'd spend a lot more, obviously.
So the other big thing with Magic is that there's a large secondary market.
Yeah, you could just buy the cards and not the boosters.
If you're like penny pinching, it's like if you want to make a sort of like competitive tournament viable deck, I suspect, depending on stuff, $300.
Yeah, but that's if you're starting from scratch.
Yeah,
Also, assuming you know what you're doing.
probably. I mean, my numbers are a bit off too. It's probably more up to date.
And that's the penny pinching number.
Well, it varies. It varies by set and what set you're in. Some decks are more expensive than others. Essentially, the rarer the cards are used in the deck, the more expensive it's going to be, obviously. And purposely, the rarer cards are generally more powerful, but not always. And so, but that's part of the appeal of the game. You're supposed to buy these booster packs, which have a random assortment of cards in them, and then even if it's stuff you don't want, it should be someone else wants maybe for their deck, and then you trade back and forth for the stuff you want.
That was the old premise before it got big.
Yeah, no, that's still the premise, honestly.
Sure.
But yeah, now people do more trading through the secondary market than like in person with each other. As far as I've seen, I don't know, other scenes may be different. But in that regard, you can possibly spend a little less especially if you have a friend group where you're just kind of sharing the cards. Then you can kind of split the cost between people in the group. Hopefully, people don't want the same cards, at least the rare ones.
Have you seen an increase in the price per pack?
No, not really.
Has that really remained stable?
Pretty much, yeah. It's about $5 per pack. Oh, it's like four. It changes though. Like it does change by set. So the standard price is $4 a pack for the draft boosters, $5 a pack for the set boosters. And if you're in a draft tournament, that's what the boosters are generally for. Most of the time, people will buy the set boosters. The dollar more is worth it in this context. But then there are other sets that are like special sets where the packs will be like $10 to $20. There are some where the packs are $9. It really depends on the set. Or sorry, the draft is $9 and the set is like $12, $13. It depends on the set, but most normal releases are $4 to $5 per pack-in.
So what's the penny pinching amount is $300 ish. So what would
On release?
someone who is living the Magic the Gathering lifestyle spend on a release? Just throw a number out there, like 1,000.
No. They probably, or maybe, but they probably buy a box. A box is like $200.
Oh, really? I thought it was more like 3 boxes.
It's tough to say because oftentimes people will buy like 3 boxes, but it's not just for them. They've pooled money from their friends.
This is what I heard from a collector. Like, you buy 3 boxes, basically 1 to keep and leave sealed, and you don't do anything with it. You just hold it as a sealed box. one to actually open, you play draft, you use it to draft, have fun with your friends, and blah blah blah, and collect the cards, whatever it is. And then you have like a spare one to if you really like the set and maybe trade with other people and do other stuff like that. Like, so you have one just to like stow away, one to actually like for yourself to enjoy, like play and use and whatever, and another to just like you open it up to supplement those two things and trade with other collectors. Like that's like their lifestyle and how much they regularly spend per set.
Yeah, that could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard that. It just sounds so extreme. I was like, what? Isn't like a box like $200? So you're spending like $600 right off the bat to do that? That sounds crazy.
Sounds like a lot to me.
But if you hold one, right, presumably to like potentially resell later, right? That's the one they're not doing anything with.
But that's I don't know. That's such a large investment, I guess.
I mean, $600. Yeah, but that's the thing. So it's like $600 per set. So back when sets were more reasonable, quarter of a year or even less than that, that's like $2,400 a year. And of course, you're gonna like resell some of it, and make some of that money back. So that's not like the most ridiculous amount for a hobby, I would say.
Oh, I would agree with that once we get to another game later. Pokemon Go. Yeah, I'm in that. I was in that realm for a little while.
Well, you just bought a ton of board games, and like, your warehouse is probably more than like whatever I just said.
Oh yeah, if you're talking about my Mulan, and I have a collection of about 500 games, and so yeah, that's somewhere in the five figures of investment. Yeah.
Board games.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Yeah, but that's over like decades, right? So,
Yeah. That's over I don't know what, 15 to 20 years.
But even so, like 2,400 isn't that ridiculous for a hobby for someone who's working constantly.
I agree.
But if you change that to every month or every other month, now we're getting like double that. Yeah, that's why people are a little upset. And on top of that, they've introduced like collector boosters, which are super expensive booster packs. They cost like $20. Actually, maybe it's a little less because there's like a normal box will have like 40 boosters or something. The collector will only have like 12 or 16. I'm trying to remember. But that's still like $300, and all the cards are foil and fancy and stuff, and like you don't need them to play the game. But if you're a collector, they're like, "Hey, spend more money on this collector," and they do. So
I think key to the success of Magic the Gathering is somehow they've tapped into a demographic that has a lot of disposable income. So, like, from what I remember from like school, like it was always those of us who were the geeky kids that played a lot of Magic and spent way too much money as children. But then we all grew up, got jobs, and then we spend way more money on Magic growing up. And like, it just gets to a point where you have to make yourself stop, unless you're one of the I don't know super rich kids who work a lot, make a lot of money, and then throw a lot of money at the hobby. It's just amazing how Magic has tapped into that demographic that, has a lot of disposable income. And all right, so that was Magic the Gathering. Any final thoughts on Magic the Gathering?
I love Magic the Gathering. For everything it's done for the board gaming hobby. Thank you, Magic. May you never die.
All right, moving on. What do we head towards? Pokemon Go, or Pokemon as a lifestyle game as well. For those of you who don't know, Pokemon Go is an app game. Let's call it a set collection game. You go around catching these Pokemon, and everybody who I've seen that treat this as a lifestyle game are very obsessive about collecting the entire set. And of course, like any other game, they keep pouring out more sets and more sets and more sets, and lets you collect up to, I believe the limit now is around 6,000. So you can store up to 6,000, and in a lot of ways this is kind of the perfect collection game because it's all digital. It doesn't take up any space. You catch these things virtually and then you collect them, and it's great. It never takes up too much closet space or anything like that. Niantic, the company that's responsible for this game, generated around $3 billion last year. I guess they have a few games, but I think by far Pokemon Go is their most popular one, and the lion's share of that $3 billion. So clearly, this is a worldwide global phenomenon where like it has hundreds of millions of players, and they have what was it? The Safari events. Now these are events in real life at actual cities around the world where you can go, travel there, vacation, do your thing, and then play Pokemon Go and specifically collect limited edition, I guess we'll call them, Pokemon from that region. And there's several events. It goes on and on. And the funny thing is, I definitely play. I don't play as much as I used to, but it's just amazing how much is in this game. Amanda plays too, and it's definitely one of the activities we kind of do together. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
I was a big time Pokemon Go player from late 2016, started around July 4th, something like that, 2016, and obviously continues to go on until now. So I was a big time player from 2016 until 2020, around the start of the pandemic. I just burned out, as I was saying. Catching all the Pokemon is great, but there's another aspect of this game that really got me going, borderline addicted, is the raids. Because there's the social component to it, and that's what really got me into it. I've actually made several friends, including one very close friend just from Pokemon Go. And so the idea of the raid is that you would go to a particular location and you would all battle this uber Pokemon together to take it down, and then you would get a chance to catch it. Thematically, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but whatever. You would defeat the Pokemon, and then you would get a chance to catch it, and each person would be able to add it to their individual collections if they could catch it with a limited number of Pokeballs, or whatever they call their special kind of Pokeball, which has its own name. I can't remember what they're called. But so yeah, there's a store, of course, within the app which you could spend Pokecoins. But of course, in order to get those, the primary way, the easiest way to get them, of course, is to spend actual money. There is a way to get coins without spending money, involving. I'm so out of the loop. I'm sure it still involves the gyms, but the method of getting the coins has changed at least a couple times, I think. But anyway, in order to really get a lot of coins and all, to be able to buy supplies and raid passes and all sorts of other things, it's the easiest thing to do is just to spend actual money, of which I was doing a good amount, kind of in the levels of what Dave was talking about for Magic. I don't know that I ever spent $2,000 in a year, but I think there was 1 or 2 years where I spent over $1,000. I can confidently say. I know for sure most people don't spend that much money, but the raid passes were kind of the expensive thing. Just speaking for myself, on the collecting part is super fun, but it's easy to get burned out on that. I found the most enjoyable part to be the social part, which really came into being once raids came to be a thing. Maybe, what was it, a year after? Because once I started meeting people, like that's just fun, like that's why you're not just in your own little world on your phone. You actually can interact with other people, and I found that to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's been my experience.
So I actually don't play Pokemon Go. I try not to play games on my phone for the most part. So I think one thing I was curious about is do you find yourself, for those who do play, do you find yourself going about your day and then suddenly deciding to open up Pokemon Go and start playing then? Or do you go to a specific spot, open up Pokemon Go, catch the Pokemon, for the limited time events, whatever else, and then go on your way? What do you find the balance is there?
I think a lot of people will just have their app on. Like the people who play hardcore, they'll have, there used to be, I guess there still is, I don't know if you can still buy them, but Pokemon Go Plus. And also there's something called a Gocha, where basically it would auto catch for you, which may sound completely silly to people who are like, well, what the hell's the point of playing the game then? But it's just an efficient way to catch Pokemon. And so you could literally be playing all the time, having the app open with your your device of choice going to auto catch these Pokemon. And then, of course, you're a more active participant when you're meeting up with people to take down a particular Mon at a gym, for example. So I kind of liked it because it was like I was, quote, being productive while I was driving somewhere playing Pokemon. Now, of course, they have mechanisms within the game where the auto catching won't work if you're going above certain speeds. So I remember playing on my honeymoon, and Mulan also plays Pokemon Go, or she did a lot.
She better if you're playing on your honeymoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, but like it was just the thing where we'd have our auto catchers going, and we were on the bus in Hong Kong, and it was the perfect speed. So we were just like hanging out, like glance at our phone, and then we're just taking in the sights. And the speed of the bus was such that we were just cooking, all the time.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it was we were having a blast, So whatever floats your boat, people out there. Pokemon Go, there's no shame playing on your honeymoon. But so I think to answer your question, it probably just it depends on the person, but there are mechanisms like the auto catchers, which will allow you to play whenever easily. You don't even have to be paying particular attention to what's going on. You do have to have the space though, which was why I ended up stopping playing. Sorry, getting a little off topic from where we were at, but it is perhaps something that might be worth talking about is what makes people stop doing these lifestyle games. Okay. And for me with Pokemon Go, the issue was the maintenance. It was just boring as heck. You only can have a certain number, and I maxed out on my bag space for both items and monsters. So it wasn't that I wasn't putting the money into that kind of stuff. You're just catching so many things, and then you have to determine your best Pokemon based on their stats. Okay. And so 15 is the highest of the 3 stats. There's attack, defense, and stamina, is it? See, I'm so out of the loop, I don't even know anymore.
HP. Hit points.
HP. Okay, so you're gonna have 15, 15, 15, which translates into 100%. So when you get to the point where you have so many Pokemon, you're like, which 98 do I keep? The 15 attack or the 15? It's just all of this stuff. And attack is considered to be the most important stat. But regardless, you can imagine having storage you're filled out on Pokemon, and you have to decide what to delete. And you can imagine there being decision fatigue when you're having to do this all the time. And so that's ultimately what ended my interest in the game. Is just I couldn't do it anymore. I got so bored with the decision fatigue of having to make room for new Pokemon, and it just took away the joy from the game. So, but back to the question at hand in terms of philosophically, how do people play the game? And I think there's a variance, but you can do the auto catchers, have it in the background, or everyone's actively going to be playing if they're actually going to be going to a gym to take down a Pokemon. And there's various events too. Community days, they used to last 3 hours, and then they kind of expanded it. Whatever, it's just everyone can meet up at their spot of choice. I used to go to UC Berkeley a lot because there were lots of kind of hot spots for Pokemon where they would spawn as you're walking around. I guess different strokes for different folks, but I think a lot of hardcore players are when they're playing, and they're actively playing for hours on end in a particular day.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy. Like I've met a lot of people playing Pokemon, and the level of obsession and the level of how you can hack the game is so extreme that I was just amazed. I couldn't believe how seriously some people play it, and they're even
just gamers, man. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, that's true. There are definitely a lot of YouTube channels sort of dedicated to it too, and they'll kind of pay for everything, do everything you can, and then film it, and then put it up as a video and as content, and then people consume it, and they get ad revenue as any YouTuber would, and it's just completely dedicated to just this game. I think two of the things this game really does really brilliantly is that it gets you out in the real world. Gets you out of the house, do it, and people I know a lot of people who like to sort of have dinner, go out for a walk, and kind of walk around, and they'll play the game, and it's a very sort of healthy after meal walk kind of deal, and it's just their ritual, and that's how they play the game, and and that's really kind of using it to supplement some very healthy activity, which is wonderful thing. And then there's some people who just go crazy where they are. Okay, I'll give you an example. There's one guy when you're catching stuff. Let's say you want to catch as many Pokemon as you can, all in a very limited time frame. So what you can do is the guy teaches you a trick to skip the animation screen of the ball hitting the Pokemon and catching it so that you could save those few seconds. And those few seconds add up when you're talking about catching like 100 Pokemon, because you maybe save like 2, 3, 4 seconds, and then if it's 100 Pokemon, you're saving 400 seconds, and that's like what, more than 5 minutes. It's just crazy. It's just so wild how like precise and hardcore people get, and I was definitely one of them for a while. I play here and there. I don't play as much as I used to, but at the height of my interest, there's a lot of things the game does to incentivize you to check in on the game every few hours. So one of the things is they installed a buddy. So in order to play with your buddy, you have to feed it. And like any other, like, I don't know, pet or edible, you have to feed it periodically to optimize your leveling of it. It's basically, you would have to feed it every 3 hours. So at the height, one of the things I would do is I would wake up, go to the bathroom, come back to bed, play with my buddy, and then go back to sleep. And it's just like, and then after that, at some point, I would get up and go about the regular day, but I'd always check in on my buddy and keep playing with it as you go, and you can play with it throughout the day. And it's really funny how crazy it was. And you can just play it for hours, and it makes visiting a new place more fun, which is also a kind of weirdly fun element to the game, because when you go to new places, there are Pokestops everywhere, and you spin them to get items. But if it's your very first time spinning the stop, it records how many different stops you've been to, and that's like a particular stat. And then it records how many total spins you have throughout the span of the game, and that's like another stat. So it kind of has this weird supplementary element to like real life that kind of makes the game fun, which is also kind of weirdly enjoyable. And it's hard to describe if you're not super into it, but yeah, I think I hit a point very similar to Brad's where it's like, I'm really dedicating a lot of time to this, and this is getting a little repetitive and a little monotonous, so I definitely kind of dialed back my play too, but still fun, enjoyable once in a while.
You were talking about the stop. So the gyms, when you spin a new gym, you get kind of the beginner's badge, if you will. You get this low level badge, and then you could increase your points through various means at your gym to work your way up to. Do they have like a platinum badge now? Long story short, it keeps track of every gym you've been to. I guess at least up to 1,000 or 500 or something. I think there's an actual hard limit, but there's a map too that you can kind of see, a world map where you can see where all you've been around the world, which is kind of fun, especially if you're taking trips elsewhere around the world, and you can kind of, just a little reminder of where you've been, which is kind of cute. It's kind of neat. In 4 years, I kind of got out of it everything that I wanted to get out of it, which, as it turned out, coupled with board games, ended up being how I met my wife Mulan through board games, and we ended up dating because of Pokemon Go. Isn't that sweet? Yeah, no kidding. I posted on a Facebook group, a Bay Area Pokemon Facebook group, saying I was going to Pier 39 in San Francisco. I think it was for a Halloween event. And long story short, we ended up meeting up, and that was kind of the beginning of when we started going out. So thanks, Pokemon Go. But in addition to that, just like once the raid started, meeting people and making friends, like that was awesome. And I was still enjoying the game, but then, like I said, with kind of the maintenance of it, I just burn out. And then it was the pandemic, and it was just so like people weren't gathering anymore for these raids, which was my favorite part of the game. So that really, just between that and the maintenance of it, that really took me out of it. But that said, I'm very glad that the game is still going strong. You'd mentioned the Safari events, Paul. I never went to a Safari event, but I went to Pokemon Go Fest one year in Chicago. I had a really good time. I went by myself. I saw some familiar faces from the East Bay there, but for the most part, it was just me wandering in this big space that was designated for the Pokemon Go event and catching Pokemon and met a few people here and there, but it was fun, a little surreal, I guess, just to have however many people, hundreds or thousands of people walking around in this designated area catching Pokemon. But they did a good job. They made it up kind of like different designated areas had different, I don't know, you call them biomes or whatever the terms are, which would have Pokemon specific to that kind of biome. And there was places to buy T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. So I think they do a good job based on my one event that I went to. They did a good job with their live event.
Do you guys have your own lifestyle games, David, Andrew?
I used to be in the Magic sphere when I was younger. Now, not so much. I play a decent variety of games. So, like, gaming is a big part of my life. Well, I don't think there's one I would consider like a lifestyle.
Well, I have one. It was my key into being introduced into the local hobby shops and therefore the board game community in that regard. And that game is Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is an offshoot of the Warhammer game, which is also a lifestyle game, which I don't touch because there's a whole can of worms to open there. But yeah, it's in the Warhammer universe, and it's a fantasy kind of football league, like American football, although it's more like rugby, really. And you have all the different races from Warhammer. Each one has their own stats. You go out there, you kick the ball off, and then you try to score touchdowns, but you also try to like smash each other and injure the other players, essentially, so they don't come back. What's neat about it is, just to make it kind of super quick, though, and what makes it a lifestyle, 'cause that's just a game, right? But what makes it a real lifestyle game is that there is a living rule book, that's what they call it, and it updates pretty frequently. So, due to input from the community and more stuff are added, it's not like you have to keep buying expansions and other things. You just keep updating through the living rule book. You may have to buy expansions for like the models if you really want those, but you don't need to keep buying new versions of the game. And two, it's much better and much more suited for a league, like a season. And so what happened was I played this with some of my friends like occasionally, and then one day I found out there was a Blood Bowl league with like, I don't know, there was like 16, 18 people in it, and so it was divided into 2 divisions. And so with 9 people, you'd play 8 games each season. And the game takes like 2 hours live. You can also play online. It takes like half an hour to an hour then. But when you played in the league, well, your roster would level up. At least the ones that survived would level up. If they died, they didn't. They'd level up so they get possibly more stat points, but usually more abilities. But also occasionally, if they don't die, they could get seriously injured, and then they would have recurring injuries or some decreases as well. And so you can retire them too if they get too injured. So your team would be fluctuating and changing and acquiring more team value, as they call it. So there's ways to handicap different team values to keep it fair or relatively fair. It wasn't that fair, but it was at least something, If the game recognized, hey, this team is way souped up compared to yours, you at least got a few benefits and things. Anyway, but yeah, it's this whole process. It's a game that it takes a while. You can put a lot of effort into customizing your stats and other things, and your characters. Oftentimes you would name your team and name every member of the team, and yeah, just to get into it, you could either do it like thematically, like if you were Skaven, which is what I was, you could name them all kind of like Skaven-like names, or you could just pick a category and just name them after that. Like this is the Mario team, and then you just pick all the Mario characters. Just name. You could do that if you wanted. But anyway, yeah, with the length of the game, it was about 2 hours. The setup of the league, and then you'd have stats and like divisions and win-loss records and playoffs and that kind of stuff. It turns it into basically like a sports league you do with your friends. And yeah, it really was. And like honestly, the game is very random. People will the diehards, which are way too serious, will tell you that randomness isn't that much of a factor. The skill of the coach is what matters more. And while technically true, like a beginner's not going to beat like a professional, but at the same time, they could. Uh, it's pretty random.
When you say professional, are there people who play this as a profession? Is that a thing?
No, I mean like tournament winning coaches. Like
Okay, okay.
I don't know if they still do it because of COVID and all that stuff, but there used to be like yearly tournaments in like Germany, other places like national championships. There was like a national championship in the U.S. a couple times, and people that win that are gonna win like 99% of the time over anyone inexperienced. Without getting into the details of the game, it's hard to explain exactly, but there is a fair amount of randomness in it. That's why it's nice to have like a league where the randomness will kind of balance out. You might lose a game or two because of randomness, but overall, your win-loss, your overall skill will show. And it's just so much fun to build up a team and give them personalities or names or whatever, paint the models, and watch as the people on your roster grow and become like superstars. And because of that, in the league, each game, each week, you'd have to plan with the person you're playing against and arrange a meeting place and play. And it could be like their house or my house, but a lot of the people wanted to play at a local game shop called Endgame, which sadly isn't there anymore. But it was my first experience at a local game shop, and so I went there to play. And then it's like, oh, look at all these games. And it's like, oh, there's a game night on whatever day it was that time. And it's like, oh, there's all these people here. And then, yeah, it just kind of grew from there. And that's how I started in the local scene for board games.
It's because of Blood Bowl.
Because of Blood Bowl, yeah. I mean, it's very possible I would have found it regardless, but I can directly say Blood Bowl was the reason I went there the first time.
Do you do any painting in Blood Bowl?
No, what I did was like you can buy the figures and stuff. I just bought other figures that were pre-painted, kind of like army men, but not just all green. Just I can't remember all the figures. I do remember my favorite figure was I had this little model of Stitch from Disneyland, and so I used that as one of my. There's this beast called the Rat Ogre, and it's this giant like rattling ogre-like thing, and I called it Stitch and used my Stitch model to pummel everyone. It's funny. Again, without getting into too many of the details, Stitch became pretty much the most feared member of the league. Stitch got some abilities that made him absolutely brutal, and he was just injuring everybody left and right that got near him. But yeah, so I didn't do the models and the painting so much. I just got some pre models, not the Games Workshop theater models and stuff that you could paint. I didn't do that, but I did have models that I customly chose out, let's say.
Final thoughts. A lifestyle game isn't really something anyone just falls into. Generally, whether it be Magic the Gathering, poker, Pokemon Go, chess, or even Go, a person probably has a passion that launches them into it. And hopefully, there's enough content and resources to sustain that interest for years. Having said that, please engage with the hobby responsibly, and if possible, pick a lifestyle game that won't develop an AI that'll kick your ass. Alright, that's all for now. Let's go ahead and into the game show. Alright, gentlemen. For the game show today, we're going to be playing a game called How Many Can You Name? The game's pretty simple. For the first round, I'm going to name a game category. Each of you will submit a bid of how many games in that category you can name. Remember, you'll only have 60 seconds, and whoever bids the highest, try to list all those games. If you hit your bid, you get points equal to your bid. If you come up short, you're going to lose points equal to your bid. And then we're going to play 3 more rounds after the first. Whoever has the lowest score gets to pick the next category. The first category was picked randomly as Reiner Knizia games.
So we'll each come up with our bid separately, and then at some point, once we're all ready, we'll just say it.
Oh, I guess you can all type it in so it's all at the same time.
Hold on, I'm being confused. Where do I type it in?
So there should be, when you're in my server and you're on the voice channel, to the right of it should be a message general channel.
Okay, yeah, I'm there.
So we're gonna make this quick. We're gonna do this blind bidding style. So remember, the amount you bid will be the points you get, but if you miss, you lose those points. When everybody has their bid ready, go ahead and just let me know.
Okay.
I put a number in.
Okay, Andrew, do you have your bid in?
I do have a number. And then real quick, we agreed that in theory I could just list games. And whatever I list, if some of them happen to be Rainier Knizia, then life is good.
You can list games. Any that do not have Rainer Knizia as a designer credit do not count. And then you'll have 60 seconds. And then, generally, I don't think anyone's going to take 60 whole seconds. If you can't think of it within 60 seconds, you're not going to think of it. Okay, go ahead and enter your bids. Okay, Andrew bid 3, Brad bid 6, and David bid 12.
And honestly, mine's an overshoot.
Where did you guys put yours?
We put in the general text channel.
Okay, I guess Dave won it with 12. All right, 60 seconds, Dave. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm not as confident. All right. So Tigris and Euphrates, Samurai, Raw, Modern Art, Amun-Re, Road to El Dorado, Razia. Babylonia. He's credited on Witchstone, which is part of Ingenious.
Okay, you only have 20 seconds left.
God, I'm blanking now. He's done everything. Not Prophecy. It's what is that game called? Oh crap! I see it in my head.
5 seconds.
The
You're out of time.
Oh, how many did I do?
You named 10.
10's okay. It's the time, yeah. The pressure gets to you. Well, now I've thought of more. Yay.
No, you did pretty good. Technically, Raw and Razia are the same game, but that's legal. That's completely legal.
Yellow and Yangtze and Tigris and Euphrates are the same game too. As is Ingenious and Witchstones. Razia's all cards.
Yeah, you did pretty good though. But short, so you lose 12 points.
Short by 2. Oh.
Brutal.
Dang.
Do you know where you're sending your direct message now? Like the thing where everyone can see it?
This one.
Yes. Okay, good. Okay, we're moving on to round 2. I didn't expect this to happen, but Dave, you have the lowest score, so you may choose the category.
I can choose the category?
Yes, the person who has the lowest score gets to choose the next category.
All right.
To then presumably help them get back up.
The more obscure, the better for our audience.
If you're behind, you can also go with a high bid. Like you might want to pick something you can make a high bid.
Bid 12 again? Yeah, okay. I'll pick CGE games then.
CGE Games. It's a publisher. They make stuff like Codenames.
Oh, just give out answers, why don't you? In fact, could you list 12 answers real quick?
Okay, well, everyone's going to be able to at least bid 1. So you have 111 possible answers. Do not bid 112.
That is good to know.
I have a potential problem here, but we'll address that when I start naming games.
Okay. So go ahead and when you're ready, go ahead and say you're ready.
Ready?
Sure, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, please type in your bids. Brad with 2, Andrew with 3, Dave with 13. Okay.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. Well, here, I'm sure within 10 seconds we're going to have a controversy. Oh, Andrew, you see where this is going?
I think I see where this is going. My prediction is that David is just going to list all the variant of code names to start off with.
That is exactly right. What did we say about that?
Okay. I guess that's legal. I didn't specifically say that's not legal.
All right. I'll just do it in the last 10 seconds if I'm faltering, because I think I can do 13 without it. But it's a lot easier if I have it.
David, you're up for 13.
I need a clarification. Just on my first guess, I don't know if Through the Ages is CGE or not. Oh, the new one is. Yeah. Okay. Wait, is it? Well, whatever. I'll just guess it, and if it's not right, I'll just keep going. I'll just do 14.
Are you ready, Dave?
I'm ready.
And go.
Okay, Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization, Dungeon Lords, Dungeon Pets, Space Alert, Galaxy Trucker, Codenames, Letter Jam, Underwater Cities, Shipyard, Mage Knight, Sanctum, crap. This happened again.
30 seconds.
Okay. Oh, Jesus. What else did he do? Whatever. Codenames Codenames Harry Potter. Codenames Disney. Codenames Pictures.
Okay, so that's 14.
Yeah. Just went with that.
I guess you get 13 points, which brings your score to 1.
So I think I got, even without the Codenames variants, I think I got 12.
I believe you were at 11 when you stopped and then named the other codename variants.
11? Okay. What Vladia games did I miss?
Vlada games?
Yeah.
A bunch, right? Like
The notable Vlada games, not like his whole collection, yeah.
Bunny Bunny Moose Moose.
Yes, I did miss that.
I don't know if I can name much more than that. Okay, let's move on. So that was one bonus round, one initial round, and one player round. Brad, you're up next in turn orders. You get to name the category.
All right. One came up. I think that would be fun. Is game mechanics.
Game mechanics.
Yeah.
You want to name just game mechanics as opposed to naming a specific game mechanic with certain games.
I don't understand what you mean.
So if you name game mechanics, that implies you're naming like worker placement,
Yep.
Blah, 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 whatever. But if you named a specific category like worker placement, then you would be naming the games. Like Stone Age is a worker placement game.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So are you naming game mechanics or are you naming a specific one?
Actually, yeah, I think meaning me and Andrew would be at less of a disadvantage if we went with one mechanic and listing the games. And since it's my favorite mechanic, not that we're gonna be able to beat Dave, we'll say worker placement.
Worker placement. Okay. Round 3. Round 3, worker placement. Please place your bids.
Oh God. Okay, so like in theory there should be a lot, but brain is slow.
Brain is slow.
I'll say
To give you an average, apparently naming 10 games is pretty easy. Naming anything more than 10 games gets exceedingly difficult.
I'll give it a little stretch. All of my bids so far have been stretches.
Didn't you bid 3?
Yes. No, I like.
You also bid 3 for the first one.
Well, he may not know CGE as well as you do, or
in Knizia, yeah, no, same. Knizia, I had Tigers Unity Phrase and Raw, and then that was it. And then CGE, I had.
Oh, then you're hoping for one more later.
Right? No, yeah, I wanted to have a stretch goal. I wanted to make it interesting. And then in the previous one, I knew code names, and I figured I could just, if I named enough stuff, I'd probably hit something else.
Okay. Does everyone have a number in the chat?
Yep.
I have a number ready to type. Yeah.
I have a number in the chat.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, enter. Andrew with 10 is the winner.
Wow, what the heck? Okay.
I underbid it a little bit just because I don't want to be the only one doing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'm not sure I would have gone higher than 10.
Okay, Andrew, are you ready?
Sure.
Andrew, here you go. 1 minute. Go.
Stone Age, Everdell, Ex Libris, Agricola, Caverna, Lords of Waterdeep. That's 6. Now what? There should easily be more. That's the frustrating thing.
There are definitely more.
There's so many more. Like, This is like what? I feel like there's probably various Uwe Rosenberg games, but I haven't actually played those, so I don't know.
30 seconds, Andrew. 30 seconds.
Sagrada, no, that's drafting. Photosynthesis, nope, that's not it. Like, it was so strong. It was such a good start. And even my stat collection of board games is not helping me at this point. This is really unfortunate. I ran out. I felt like there was so much more. Like, part of me wants to say Terraforming Mars because I mentioned Everdell, but like I don't think that counts. No.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Wow.
you're out of time.
Wow. There we go.
Okay, so Andrew loses 10.
Dave wins with 1. It wasn't a runaway.
What the one? It does get decidedly harder.
Yep.
After like the most popular ones. I found it interesting you said Agricola and Caverna, and then didn't say the third one.
I don't know the third one.
Oh, it's a Feast for Odin.
Oh, that's so funny. That thought, like when I mentioned Uwe Rosenberg, that thought did come to mind, but I haven't actually played Feast for Odin.
Feast for Odin is quite good. We should play sometime. It's quite good, but it is intimidating the first time you look at it. You look at it, and there's 63 available spots.
So I guess with the strategy of just saying games, I should have done it.
Okay, we ready for the last round? Last round.
I thought there were 3 rounds. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't counting the first round because I named that category.
Wait, so I'm up by 13 then?
You have 1 point.
But the first round doesn't count. Where I lost 12.
You have a 1-point lead over Brad.
Oh.
There's one last round as this was pre-planned. Going into the last round, Dave has 1 whole point. Brad's in second with 0. Andrew's in third with -10. He's going to have some ground to make up. Okay, Andrew, go ahead. You get to name the category.
Well, he's gonna bid at least 11.
It's true, but luckily I get to pick the category now.
Games in my top 10. It's like, okay, bid 10, I guess.
That would be funny. Cool. Well, let's go with the other option from Brad because I don't have ideas. Actual game mechanics.
Well, game mechanics.
Yes.
All right. Does everyone have a number put in?
No, I'm thinking of the strategy here because I don't want to doom myself.
Doom yourself. I want to win with 0.
That's what I was wondering here because that's another thing. I also want Brad to go.
Oh, that's a good point.
I'm a little nervous about it. I'd have to stretch my brain. Ugh.
You had 3 rounds to prepare for this.
So, yeah, this is interesting. Like, it would be fun to have Brad go.
I wonder how I would do. So I'm going to put a number that will make me work hard, but maybe won't be a stretch.
Just tell me, is it more than the last one you bid?
I'm not saying anything.
Right. I want to just retroactively lower my bid after I see the bids. I think I have a power card that lets me do that. Yeah.
All right.
I have a number ready.
Yep, me too.
Go ahead and enter your bids. Brad bids 7, Andrew bids 5, and David bids 10. Okay, David, you're up with your bid of 10.
Okay. Boy, this is a category I haven't really thought about.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so worker placement, set collection, hand management, drafting, dice rolling or dice manipulation.
Yeah, it counts as 1.
Fine, count it as 1 then. Roll and move, pick up and deliver. Cooperative.
Okay, that technically counts. It's listed in the geek.
Yeah, that's a mechanic. I'm pretty sure. Bluffing, blind bidding, bidding in general. Auction.
That's good. You got 10. Yeah, 20 seconds to spare. All right. Final scores. Dave has 11 and the win.
Yay!
Brad comes in second with 0, and I feel like he did the best as far as effort versus the score.
Yeah, totally.
And then Andrew, I'm sorry, you have -10.
But wait! Now I propose a challenge round.
Okay, a challenge round.
Yeah, I'm going to challenge Brad. Or you can challenge... maybe I'll challenge Paul, actually. That might be fun. But Brad hasn't gone, so I'm going to challenge him first. Brad, I challenge you to name 7 cooperative games in 60 seconds.
I don't know that I can, so...
Well, that's the challenge.
Okay.
Here we go. Ready? Go.
All right. Pandemic. Pandemic Season 2, Pandemic Season 3, Pandemic Season 0, Pandemic Season 1. I don't know that there is a 3. Sugar. Let's see what else. My brain is hurting. Oh, God. Oh, what's Crew?
30 seconds.
I know. I played co-op games. I'm struggling. I'm just blanking. Oh,
All right, you have 10 seconds.
it's just not. It's not coming to me.
I'm sorry, Brad. You've named 5 out of your 7.
That's okay. Hey, I got 5.
We're accepting the fact he didn't say legacy in those pandemics.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that was a thing, to be honest. So,
Well, I mean, not. I mean, I think it's acceptable. We know what you meant, but yeah, you just said pandemic season 1, where it's pandemic legacy, or
oh, I see. No, that's legit. That's actually.
yeah. Have you tried any of the pandemic variants or spin-offs?
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
No, I own. I think 2 of them.
Oh,
Like one was a white elephant, and then I don't know, can't remember how we got them, but
they're actually pretty interesting. The one I find the most interesting, crap, I'm blanking on the name. It's the one where in like the Netherlands, and you have to put up dams and dikes for the flood.
that's interesting. Oh no, I was just talking about the Pandemic Legacy games. I haven't.
Also, there's Cthulhu and there's Fall of Rome as well. Oh, and Iberia.
I can't stand Lovecraft stuff. Ugh, I hate that thing. I just can't stand it.
Oh yeah, ignore the Cthulhu one then.
Yeah, not my jam. Yeah,
Sorry, have you played The Mind?
no.
I think it'd be really fun to play The Mind with.
What is?
It's a cooperative game where you try to count from 1 to 100 without talking to each other, more or less.
Ooh,
Oh my god, I totally forgot about that too.
that sounds amazing. Yes. Oh my God, how did I forget Hanabi? I love Hanabi.
And by proxy, Letter Jam.
Now you know the crux of the game. The other version of the game was everyone would just keep bidding and you would naturally stop at some point, but the blind bidding's a little faster.
Yeah, no, and also less slaughtery.
I'd win the bet every time, yeah.
Dave won, and rightly so. But yeah, the blind bid was the better way to go. And it was more fun to see the numbers come up. It was more fun for me. I don't know about
Honestly,
most.
the roundabout bid probably would have been better for me because I would have purposely not overbid people just to see them go. Does no one have a challenge for Paul?
Let me bring my timer back out.
Yeah, what do we want Paul to do?
Do you guys have a category?
Yeah, Brad's excited. I want him to name one.
Oh, I think that's a good idea.
If Andrew has anything.
Let's see. Okay, I got one. Actually, games that came out before 2000.
Before 2000?
Before 2000.
Yeah, before 2000.
That's a large list. We'll have to probably check those when he names them.
Well, but it's in 60 seconds,
How many do you want him to name?
8.
8? I honestly don't know if I can do 8.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Yeah. When you're ready.
Settlers of Catan or Catan. Power is in there.
Oh.
Monopoly, Risk. They'll all be before 2000. Let's see. Guess Who? Operation? Sorry. All the lame ones before, and whatever. Chess and Go? There you go. That's 9. That's 9.
That's 9. Yeah, I thought that was a lot easier than. I thought 8 might have been low, but it depends on how quickly you go to the classic games.
Yeah. I was like, Catan was 95.
You could have said Candyland. Candyland. Chess and Go are good. The Scrabble.
No, that's good.
I can just name poker, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Texas Hold'em.
Oh yeah, that would have been brutal. No, I knew it was quote easy, but when you're under the gun, your brain can be tough. So.
Well, I was wondering if you'd think of it, or if you just go for modern stuff. It's because you started with Catan, it'd be is it going to be Acquire and Cosmic Encounter and stuff like that? And like stuff that might be played today in a one of those things you're gonna go like the game of Senate, the royal game of
I'm not gonna lie, my heart it died a little when he started doing, the garbage games that we grew up with. I was hoping more for, Catan, and then chess and Go, and that kind of stuff. But it's cool.
My mind drifted to the card games with like the playing cards.
Euchre, Hearts, Bridge.
Euchre was the standard growing up in Indiana. That was like the game.
Sheep's Head, Whist.
A whist.
You need more than one deck for that, but yeah. Cool. Well, good job, Paul.
Thanks. All right, that's going to do it for us. I hope you guys enjoyed our ridiculous game show. I want to thank our special guest Brad for playing and his insights on various lifestyle games. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on Board Game Geek. We are the Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast, guild number 4233. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the show, please email us at impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word, impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.